We have an upcoming project on Woodworking with Wes that requires a little unique kind of build. I want to show you something that we've not done before. It's called a glue bend. Let's start off by a little drawing that tells us what we're going to do, and then I'm going to show you how to take the drawing to the setup and then to the glue bend. Here's our drawing right here. This is going to be a tabletop, and this line right here, this is the tabletop edge, and underneath the tabletop is a skirt. The skirt is indicated by this area right in here. And I drew this out with my little homemade compass. I just take a piece of wood, put a screw in there. I've got a center hole. I put my little screw in the center hole, and I have holes drilled. And I just take my pencil, and that's my compass. I'm going to use that exact same compass to draw the wood piece that we are going to use to make the glue bend jig. And here is that piece right here. So this piece of wood here represents this corner of our table that we just drew. Here's our center point, and we're going to take our little screw and put in our center point. And this is the outside of our glue bend. And this is the inside of our glue bend. I'm going to extend our line a little bit further here. Okay, now our skirt that we're going to make is 3 inches high. But the first thing we need to do is to create a form to pull our glue bend to. That is represented by these blocks. And so let me show you how these blocks work. And then we're going to go ahead and put the blocks on. I'm going to show you. This block is going to be, we've got 2 of them this size that are going to be our end blocks. I have put pocket hole screws on there, and we're going to line this up with the back line of our glue bend. So this one goes here, and this one goes here. Now, this line here represents a full 1/4 of our table. And we're going to build this glue bend in quarters. So those 2 will go there. And then on these other blocks, I have put 2 pocket holes on one side, 1 pocket hole on the other. And we're going to line those up with the back side of our drawing like that. Now, let's go ahead and, I saved one so we could show how to do it. We're just going to take our little pocket jig and put on here. We're going to clamp it to our work table like this. I've set up my drill with my pocket drill bit. Two holes on one side and 1 hole on the other. And I might not even need all 3. The reason I did that was because when you put a pocket screw in, it has a tendency to push it to the one side. And so by having screws from both sides, I'm just ensuring that when I put my screws in, that it's going to stay right where I want it. So there's our final block, and it's going to go right there. The pocket screws that we're going to use, there are special pocket screws, pocket hole screws. They have a coarse thread with a self-tapping point and a flat head. It's a special head that pulls the board into the pocket. Okay, let's change our bit. We'll be using a long bit to get down in there. We'll put on our glasses so we can see. And we're going to glue these blocks on because there's going to be a lot of pressure on these blocks when we start doing this glue up. And you'll see that when we get ready to go on it. So we're going to put a little glue on the bottom of each of our blocks. And we're going to set it right there. We're lined up with our quarter line. Okay, let's move these over and straighten up our block, because we want our blocks have got to be good and straight. Okay. And that's going to be screwed on good and tight and glued on good and tight. And we'll start at the center and work our way out, evenly spacing these blocks. These blocks will allow us to bend our board and clamp to them. You'll see when we get there, but let's go ahead and put one more block in, and then I'll go ahead and get the rest of it set up. Okay. We want to be right to the back of our line there. Okay, let's straighten our block back up again now that we've got one screw in. Put our other screw from the other side. And now this block is secure. All right, we're going to go ahead and anchor the rest of them evenly spaced all the way around, just like that. I got so busy telling you how we were going to put the jig together that I forgot to tell you exactly what a glue bend is. Let me show you by demonstrating these three little pieces. What you do is you cut wood in thin strips, putting glue in between each level, and then clamping it to the jig until the glue dries. And that keeps the wood bent, so it becomes a glue bend. And I forgot to mention exactly what a glue bend was, so hopefully this clarifies a little bit what a glue bend is. It's just pieces glued together in a bent form. All right, we have our jig set up, ready to go. This is the radius that we want. These will become clamping blocks. So as we put our wood on here, we'll put a clamp on each one of these blocks to tighten down, and that is how we hold our glue bend into place. Let's go over to the table saw and show you the wood we're going to be using. The way we start off by making our wood, what I've done is I've ripped a bunch of wood in and cut it to the lengths that we want. We're going to take each piece of wood and we're going to split it by resaw into 3 individual pieces. So we're going to go ahead and do that first. Then I'm going to take it to my planer and I'm going to plane it down so that it has some pliability. Now this is 1/4 inch and it's not very pliable, and we're going to get it thinner than that when we run it through the planer. But let me show you how we start off. We'll set our saw at 1/4 inch, maybe just a shade shy of 1/4 inch. The reason being is this is 7/8 of an inch thick. Quarter is 3/4. 2 saw blade widths in the middle is also 1/4, that's 1 inch. So if we're a little bit less than 1/4 inch, we should end up with 3 slices about the same thickness, and that's what we want. We're going to plane them down when we get all done with our planer to make sure that they're all exactly the same, and they'll be smooth also. This is just the way the wood comes from the lumber yard. Surface is kind of a rough surface. So let's turn on our dust collector. We've put in our 50-tooth rip blade. Let me tell you how we're going to do this though before we start. What we're going to do is we'll cut one way, we'll turn it around and cut the other way. Flip it over, cut again, turn around, cut again, and then we'll raise our blade and do the same process over and over until we have cut clear through our 4-inch piece of wood. As we begin to cut, you noticed I didn't use a push stick. While I'm holding onto my board, the blade is actually buried on the inside of the board as we flip and flip. And so the blade is not exposed to my hand even though I'm holding onto the board. And you need to hold onto the board really good and tight because it's important to keep this straight up and down and moving through the saw evenly. No way to put a push stick on there because the blade is buried on the inside of our stick. And each of our pieces will be ripped the same way. Now these are all just very, very close to being the same thickness, but we'll even those up when we run them through the planer. And we'll go ahead and cut all the rest of our boards the same way, giving us equal size resawn pieces. With all of our pieces resawn into a little 1/4-inch thick pieces, now like I say, you could resaw on a bandsaw if you have a bandsaw big enough. I just have a little bench top, so I had to do this on the table saw. But it worked out really good, and we're ready now to run it through our planer. We're going to plane everything down to a consistent thickness on all of our pieces and get ready to bend it on our glue bend. We have all of our pieces planed down to the same thickness now, so we're consistent in our thickness. I put 5 pieces together. I don't have to have any particular thickness here. I just have to have a strong enough skirt to make a nice piece, but I put 5 pieces together and it comes out to 7/8. I'm going to go with that. I like a little heavier thickness there. I could do 4 just as easy. 4 would give me a thickness of just a little over 5/8. That would also be fine, but I'm going to go ahead and give a little extra. Now, what we need to do is we need to have glue on the surfaces of all of our pieces that is kind of a consistent thickness of glue. The glue is what allows these pieces to slip against one another as we clamp them up, and you'll see what I'm talking about here in just a minute. Here's our centerpiece. We don't need any glue on that. We'll set it off to the side. Let's see, I'm going to do this so it'll be a little easier to work with. I'm going to run me glue back and forth like this on every one of my pieces. And we need to work relatively quickly because of the fact that we don't want the glue to set up until after we get our clamping all done. We want our glue to stay moist the whole time we're clamping up. Okay, I'm going to do every piece just like that. Okay, so there's one. If you had a roller glue spreader, you could use it for this, and that would work really well. I don't have one actually, and so we're going to wing it like this. We'll still be just fine. You want to make sure you have plenty of glue. This is one area where you really want to make sure that you're not short on any glue, because as we clamp it together, when we talk about being a glue bend, we're bending the wood, but the glue is what holds the bend. Once that glue dries, and we're going to let it dry overnight, this is not something you want to be taking out of clamps anytime too soon. So we're going to let each one of these dry overnight. The glue has to be really good and dry. And like I say, that's what holds our bend. Okay, I think we about got her. There. Okay. Now our centerpiece comes back in. And we fold up these pieces to them like that. Now you'll notice there's a line across the top of my pieces. That is the center. Okay, all right. Let's pull our jig up here. We're going to work on our jig on the corner so that we can work a little more easily from side to side, because you need to work side to side as you're working this. Now this is our center block. There's our center line. There's our center mark. And we're going to start with our center clamp. We're going to lay it right on top of the block that we have here, and we're going to tighten that down. Okay, now we'll take our next two clamps, and we're going to put that clamp there, and this clamp here. And you can see now how that's kind of, we've got to keep these pieces pushed down tight against our table too. So we want to make sure that, now we're 4 inches wide in our glue up. We have a 3-inch wide skirt. So when we get this all glued up, we will be cutting it down to 3 inches. And so it's okay to have it move around a little bit on us. That's expected. But we want to keep it as close to there as we can. And we're going to come around this side over here. We'll continue to work those clamps. Now we'll put another clamp on here, and we'll start to tighten this one up. And as we tighten this one up, this one becomes a little loose. And that's what we want. We want it to be loose so that we can retighten our clamp, and we're going to work our way out just like that, all the way out. Actually, this clamp goes over here, and we're going to put our long clamps on the outside there. Okay. See how that clamp got loose on us? Okay. So we'll back it off so that we give ourselves the full clamping power of the clamp, and then we'll tighten it down. And now this one becomes loose. And see how we've used up all of the threads? Now we'll back the threads back out and tighten it down. And you can begin to see how our bend is bending to the form of the blocks that we put. And like I say, we need to work side to side, so back over to the other side. We'll move up like that. Tighten our clamp on this side. You need to Okay, and here's our clamp, got loose again. That's what we wanted. Okay, put it back down there tight. Bring it up. I tell you, this will give your wrists a workout. If you want to strengthen your wrists, do a bunch of glue bends. That'll keep you going. Okay, and let's bring in one of our long clamps out here now. My wrists are getting tired. Talk about a workout, here we are. Okay. I'm sorry I've got my arms in the way, but you've got to hold them and see how this clamp got loose. Okay, that's what we're looking for as we tighten our way around the blocks. And you can see, if you look down inside here, you can begin to see how the block lines up on, really holds that glue bend straight up and down. Okay, back out our clamp again. Give it again another tighten. I'm going to put our final clamp out here on the end. You notice I put a big block on the end. Well, that's our anchor. And so we want to have a nice big block for our anchor. Okay, sorry my hands are in the way again. Okay, this clamp got loose, just like we wanted. Okay, tighten it up again. Whoa, this clamp came loose, we didn't want that. Let's go over here to this side, and that'll help hold that clamp in place while we continue to give it some pressure. Okay, starting to make that final bend on there. Okay, see, we've used up all of our threads on our last clamp, so we back it out and give us our threads back. Same thing on this one. Move it up. All right, let's tighten this one back up. You can see how as we work our way around, we take the pressure off of those inside clamps. Well, we want to keep those tight. So we want to keep working those, make sure they're tight, because even pressure is what we're looking for everywhere. Okay. And we're hurrying on this end because now we've got to get back over to the other side too. We still have that to do. Okay, I think we have it. All our clamps are tight and we're against the blocks all the way around. And so there is our glue up clamp. Now we'll let, like I say, we'll let this dry overnight. This is wider than we need and longer than we need. And so when we get all done, we will trim it down to thickness and we'll cut the ends. So when these ends don't look like they've come together, it's because they don't need to come together. That's not part of the actual glue up that we need. So we always make it a little long, always make it a little wide so that you can trim to the size that you need. And we check our insides and all of our boards are tied against our blocks. So our glue up is correct. Tomorrow we'll make another one. Okay, we've allowed our glue bend to dry overnight. It's time to take off our clamps and see how we did. There are many different ways to do glue bends like this. This is the way I was taught years ago, was to You know, lay out your curve that you needed and glue blocks so that you could have a block for each clamp. Like I say, I'm sure there are other ways. This is the way I was taught. All right, let's see. Okay, there's our glue bin. Look at that. And like I say, we'll go ahead now and trim this and cut it to the size, but you glue it up a little big so that you can do that. But there we are. A nice radius that will end up being the skirt to our coffee table. I hope you enjoyed this. We'll have more of these to do, but here's a little trick for you to add to your repertoire from Woodworking with Wes.